Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk, back again with you guys for another show, for another episode of our Raw Reaction series, our show in which we react to the latest Arsenal news. Get your thoughts and feelings in the chat box as well, and basically try and make a bit of sense about what's been going on. And I know that I've had about we finished the other show about an hour ago, just over an hour ago, and you sit down, you're going, right, I'm going to have a nice evening. Just gonna get on with my life. Just gonna, do what I need to do. But I just couldn't let this one lie. I couldn't let this one just go. I was so taken aback. And of course, this news, which you're aware of because you clicked on this video, dropped when I was doing the podcast with Vinny and Jared and Sasha, and we reacted to it a bit. So if you want to get their thoughts, please make sure you go back and watch that video. I was so taken aback by the brashness, the honesty, the truthfulness of it, the critiquing that went on in the video as well. That was, I really was a bit taken aback by it all. So we're gonna break it down. We're gonna read through all of the quotes. We're gonna go through them individually in each section, and we're gonna try and make some sense of them. I'm gonna get your thoughts, of course, as always, in the chat box as well. But really, really crazy, crazy. So let's kick off with this then and go through this. Now, this is courtesy of the Telegraph, who published the interview. I've got all the quotes separately, so this is via the Telegraph. If you want to go and read it, I'll leave a link to the article in the description. Anyway, let's start on the first bit regarding the lack of dialogue. Which is basically, okay, let's set the scene. That's probably the best way to start. Ainsley Maitland-Niles has gone out on loan for the last 6 months of the season from Arsenal to West Brom, where he played quite a bit more than he was playing previously to that. Previously to the loan, he wasn't really playing much this season. He was playing here and there, but to be honest, because Arsenal moved away from the back from the back three to a back four, he didn't really have a place in the team. He was used mainly in Europe in the Europa League group games. And prior to that, of course, was in the team. We're kind of going back in time here. So at the end of the 1920 season, he was playing quite regularly. He was in the first team. He was playing in the cup games, but still wasn't week in, week out in the league. He played in the cup game against Chelsea and Man City, but it wasn't like he was playing every single week in the league still. But those performances in the cup games earned him a call up to the English national side, which obviously was a big honour to him and fair play to him. It is a great achievement for him to have done that. So that's really good. But what is most interesting, and I'm just noticing in my chat box that clearly even more news is dropping regarding Willian. Well, I'm sure we'll cover that in tomorrow's transfer show. I'm not doing another show. We're talking about Maitland-Niles. We'll talk about Willian tomorrow morning. But for me, his England call-up was a great achievement, but he was never going to be a long-term option for Arsenal for me. He was never really good enough to nail down a position. He always was doing interviews in the past about how he didn't particularly like being a right back, how he thought of himself as a midfielder, and that's where he wanted to play. And there was not really an opportunity for him for midfield, because you got Xhaka there, you had Partey in it this season, of course. Danny Ceballos was doing quite well at the end of 2019-20. El Neni, of course, came back and did really well. We had Ramsey prior to that too. There wasn't really a slot for him in the team. Guendouzi was still at the club, of course, in 1920 as well. So he was never really going to get into the midfield. Lucas Torreira was still with us, if you think all the way back then. So he was never going to go there. And then the new season starts and doesn't really get any minutes. Anyway, fast forward to present day. And we're in a situation now where he's coming back off the loan from West Brom. And he obviously is clearly frustrated because he doesn't know. He doesn't know if he's going to have a future at Arsenal. He's not been told. And so because he's not been told, he has made the decision, and it is his decision, coming from someone who, like, players have media responsibilities, okay? Coming from a journalist perspective, when I get player interviews and I go out and I try and interview players for 101, which we do and have done, and you can check out our interviews on 101 Great Goals, I email clubs, I speak to their communications officers, their PR people, and then go through to the player. Sometimes you have to get it okayed through the agent. Sometimes you don't, because it mainly is it's the club's prerogative whether they let you speak to their player or not. And Arsenal players, let me tell you, are very difficult to get interviews with. It's Arsenal aren't the biggest fans of their players doing interviews that aren't like, especially with say more third-hand side of things, third-party side of things, rather than associated things that for a direct line. Arsenal aren't the biggest fans. I've worked with PR companies that manage, I'm not going to say the specific players, but have a player at Arsenal on their books. And whilst I can speak to their players that aren't at Arsenal, I can't speak to the player that is at Arsenal. It's never been open. That route has always been closed. So Arsenal aren't keen. So the fact that this interview is here, from my assessment and purely from my judgment, this has come from Maitland-Niles or his agent or something to that. Maybe either one of two routes: one seeking the interview out and looking to do the interview, or obviously the Telegraph have contacted Ainsley Maitland-Niles representatives and he's accepted the interview with Arsenal not knowing he was going to do it. But yeah, so that's to give you some background into how this kind of thing works. Now, we are going to do this, and we're going to look at this to two sides. We're going to do two sides to this. We're going to try and look at it from the perspective of Maitland-Niles and why he's frustrated. And we're then going to look at it from the perspective of the club and how they might view it, and from our own perspective as well, of what we think if it's okay to say that. And in the chat, obviously, the whole point of this show is to evaluate, is to break it down, it's to try and understand why he's in this mindset. I don't want to see people abusing Ainsley Maitland-Niles. I don't want to see people criticising him with abuse. If you disagree with him, that's fine, and you can put those words in the chat. But I don't want to see people abusing our player, because he is still our player, no matter what you think of him. So let's hear what he said. He says, if I was to get a phone call from someone at Arsenal and they said they'd like a meeting tomorrow, then it would be easier that way. They can tell me whether they've got plans to play me in the future or if they want to sell me. I've heard they want to make some space in the squad and some money, so I'm not sure. Now, this was basically responding to questions about whether he'd heard from the club, or the fact that asking that he'd not heard from the club, and he is frustrated that there has been nothing so far, that there's been no contact as of yet. He's not been contacted by Arteta, by Edu, by anyone to tell him what's going on, basically. That's the situation that he is in. And he's telling us that he feels that he should be calling him, and that he's frustrated clearly that they haven't. Now, it's interesting that he knows, and he's speaking vocally about the point where he says that obviously Arsenal want to make some money and they want to make some space in the squad, and he doesn't know whether he falls into that category of players that are going to be used for that or not. It surprises me how open he is about this, and how open he is about saying about the direction the club wants to go in, saying he's heard. Now, he doesn't specify whether he's heard that through the press or through other players or through the club itself from being a player there. I very much think it's a combination of the first two. And I just think that if, in my view, in my opinion, and obviously this is coming from a space, I'm not a footballer. I don't know the inner workings of Arsenal Football Club. I don't know how easy it is for a player to get contact with his manager. Now, we were told by Arteta previously that they are in constant contact, is what he said, with all of the players they are on loan with: Saliba, Mavropanos, Torreira, etc. So for my mind, it should be fairly reasonable to assume that Maitland-Niles could contact his coach. You would think that that is possible. So my immediate reaction to this was to say, well, he's a player at the club. What if he wants to know what's going on? Why doesn't he or get his representatives to contact the club and find out? Because surely, at minimum, what's going to happen with that is that if they aren't going to tell him there and then on the spot what they're doing with him, at least they can turn around to him and say, look, Ainsley, we're not going to discuss it with you over the phone. We want to have a proper meeting about this. We'll schedule this in next week, 2 weeks, whenever. Give him a date. But surely that hasn't happened. Surely that hasn't happened, because otherwise, why would he go to the press about it? So that's one side. Let's look at the other side of the argument, which is, why on earth, the day before the transfer window, have the club not spoken to Ainsley Maitland-Niles yet? Why have they not gone and spoken to the player? By this point, and we're told as fans, we've listened to press conferences from Mikel Arteta where he has said him and Edu have fully planned out the summer. That is sorted. They know what they're going to do. They've got contingency plans if they don't get their first targets, if they don't get into certain competitions of European football next season, which we haven't. They've got this all planned out, right? That's what we've been told. So why, a day before the transfer window opens, when this comes out, this interview comes out, the interview was probably done a little bit ago, a few days ago, let's be fair, because it takes time before they get them out. Why is this? Why has he not been contacted? Why do the players not know? Because if he doesn't know, and he's about to talk about, in the article, it references Joe Willock also wanting to know his future. Maitland-Niles doesn't say anything about Joe, but the article in the Telegraph suggests that Joe Willock wants to understand his future. Why haven't Arsenal contacted the players yet? Because in my mind, that is poor management of the player. That's poor planning. That's poor preparation for the window. So there's both sides of the argument for me. Is that one, I don't feel like Maitland-Niles should have gone to the press, and there should have been a way, surely, for him to contact the coach, contact the technical director, contact the club to try and find out, at minimum, to schedule a meeting before having to go to the press. He should, if he's desperate, and I know people in the chat box were saying he shouldn't have to go to the press, and you're right, you're 100% right, he shouldn't have to go to the press. However, in my opinion, the step before going to the press should surely be you or your reps contact the club first. Surely that is the most sensible thing to do. And in my mind, when you do that, surely you're going to get a response of, we're going to discuss this at this period, next week, whenever, on this date. I cannot see Arsenal turning around. I might be wrong. This is purely guesswork. I can't see Arsenal turning around and just going, we'll let you know soon, or we're going to talk about it a bit. It's too high of a high caliber business. I just feel I can't picture. I know they make a lot of mistakes, but I just can't fathom that is what would happen. So I think there's two wrongs in this situation, and we can't make assumptions. We can't assume that the club's ignored him. We can't assume that the club's said but we can have a guess and say, I feel like the club would have turned around and said this, as in, I feel like they would have said, look, we'll schedule a date. But in my opinion, he shouldn't have gone to the press. But on the other side of things, the club definitely should have this sorted already. Let's move on to the next quote, which says, on his future, I want a decision. I want some clarity. And then hopefully I can get to work with whoever I need to get to work with. Whether that is finding a new club or whatever that is carrying on from my training, I would like some kind of indication of what is happening, where they, as in Arsenal, see me. If it works out, it works out. If it doesn't, then I'll kiss my Arsenal goodbye. It's been a long journey, but a proud one at that. Maybe they still want to do something and things could change. If not, there's always other teams. It would be easier to do it now than waiting for pre-season to kick in and everything is super busy and they can't answer their phones because they are doing too much work. You know how the football world works. So in that second half, maybe we get a little bit of answer to the first one. He says, if not, there's always other teams. And then he goes on to say, it would be easier to do it now than wait for the pre-season to kick in and everything is super busy and they can't answer their phones. So if he's saying that they can't answer their phones later, surely that means they can answer their phones now before pre-season starts. Surely that conversation can take place. Surely he has admitted there that the conversation can take place, that he can ring them up, he can get an answer from them. And I have to add on to that is that say he has, so we don't know if he has or not, but say he has rung them up and they haven't given him a date. Even in my mind then, going to the press after speaking to them is arguably worse. But when he says about where Arsenal see me, if it works out, it works out. If it doesn't, then kiss Arsenal goodbye. Maybe it's because I'm an Arsenal fan. It probably is, but that just seems a little, I don't know, it's a little frustrating. I find that statement because I get maybe he's not an Arsenal fan. He's been at the club for a long, long time. I thought he was. I thought that's certainly coming through Hale End and developing at the club for so many years. I thought it seems very, very easy. You know what I mean? It seems a very easy thing to just cut ties with, which is fine. It's absolutely it's his opinion. He can do what he likes, but it just seems a bit easy on that side. Do you know what I mean? It's just a little bit strange how easily he's like there. If it doesn't, if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. And we'll just kiss Arsenal goodbye. rather than like it being a very, very difficult situation for him, etc., etc. It seems very cut and dry. But yeah, let's move on to the next one. It gets a little bit more interesting. So on losing his place in the team, he says it was a very difficult one for him to swallow, that decision, because the back end of last season, I put in a couple of performances in the Cup in the final. And then after that break, we had another Community Shield, which led to my England call-up not too long after that. Then a couple of months after that, it all died down. I wasn't playing anymore, so it was strange, very strange. I went from having everything at my feet to everything taken away from me. Now, I'll take issue with that, because in my opinion, there are players in the team. There's two schools of thought for why Ainsley Maitland-Niles isn't playing anymore. One, because the players that were playing, you would argue, are higher in the pecking order, are better. I know we criticise Hector Bellerin a lot, but I would still put him ahead of Ainsley Maitland-Niles in the right-back position. In terms of the positions that he was playing well in, it was left wing-back, a system that we abandoned pretty early on during the season to go to a back four. So I don't see it being taken away from him. He talks about it like it was unfair, like he had nothing to do with it, like it was unjust. I don't agree with that. I don't think it was unjust. I don't think it was unfair. I just don't think he deserved to be in the team at that point. I think he wasn't ahead of the people that were playing. I didn't think he fit into the system that we were using. So I think I don't agree with that statement. It says, I was trying to understand it on my own, but sometimes it's not for me to understand. It's for me to keep working hard, to keep doing what I do, and I have to let other people understand it for me, which I understand. Obviously, it's a good thing to hear him say that he wants to work hard. He wants to keep on working, keep on doing what he's doing, which is fine. If you take away the first sentence from that, Ainsley, I think that's a fine sentence. It's just the way you say, it's taken away from me. It's a bit strange to say that, because I don't think it was taken away from you. I think other players earned the right to be in the positions that they were, rather than it being taken away from him. Says it was difficult to take. You get called up for England, play regularly football for your club, get to an England camp, and then it all disappears, and you're not playing for either. You don't really get any contact from either manager, from international. So there, I mean, he's not only saying that Arteta's not spoken to him, but Gareth Southgate's not said anything to him. It seems a bit moany, that. I'll be real with you. It seems a bit moany. I get it. I understand. It just seems a bit unprofessional, in my opinion. I was thinking, what do you want me to do? What am I supposed to do now? The end of it's a little bit, it's just a little bit moany. It's like, what do you want me to do now? Well, you've said what you need to do. He said it earlier on. He said you just keep working hard, you put in the minutes, you put in the time, because Ainsley Maitland-Niles is not the only player in the Arsenal squad and in the England setup that is not getting picked. It's not getting picked. And Dion Jenny, I'm not forgetting that Bellerin wasn't great. I'm not forgetting that at all. I'm also not forgetting that Ainsley Maitland-Niles at right back was never really that much of a success. Just didn't work for me. The only thing that he had going for him is that people thought, and there's some evidence to it, that he worked better with Pepe. That is the only thing. So I'm not forgetting that Bellerin wasn't great at right back then. You've also got the fact that Cedric was there, as well as another backup. So there's arguably two people ahead of him. It's just, he doesn't get in ahead of those two for me in that position. He's not a right back, in my opinion. He just isn't a right back. He hasn't got anywhere close to enough of the ability going forwards with his deliveries and stuff like that to be classed, in my view, as a right back. Defensively, he works. And that's why he works so well in the cup games against Chelsea and Man City. But defensively, he's just not enough for me. I think both Bellerin and Cedric are better defensively than him. So no, I'm not forgetting that whatsoever. But yeah, it comes across a little bit moany there at the end. But again, let's try and look at it from the other side. Should Gareth Southgate have spoken to him, explained to him? Again, it does very much feel like he's waiting for this to happen. Now, it's not uncommon for players to go to their managers, go and have a sit down with the coach, ask why you're not playing. I don't get that feeling from this interview. I don't get the feeling that he, for me, is someone that has gone to the coach and asked why he's playing. For me, it very much seems like he's let the season go by and he's kind of internalizing it instead of actually going to the coach and asking why he's not playing. Because he's saying, no one told me anything. Southgate told him nothing. Arteta told him nothing. It's not down to the coach to go to a player and explain to them why they're not playing. That's not normal. You don't expect that. You really don't. it's not the responsibility of a coach to go to a player and say, look, by the way, I just want to let you know you're not playing because these guys are ahead of you. He's going to basically prioritize the people that are putting in full effort, and he'll speak to the players when he needs to. But it's not for me. It's not. If I was a manager at a company and I promoted someone, it's not my responsibility to go to all of the other people that applied for that promotion and say, look, you didn't get this because. I would look at it from a management perspective and go, look, you be proactive. If you want to know why you didn't get the job, come to me, ask me. That shows me that you still have that determination, that desire to improve, to learn from your mistakes, get better. By you not coming to me, there is an element of that saying, I'm okay with it. I'm okay with the fact that I didn't get it, that I'm not playing. So for me, he has to be more proactive if we look at it from both sides of it. Let's scroll up and get a super chat from Sam Chester, who is a long-time listener of the show. It says, Maitland-Niles moaning has never served him well. Look at Saka. Gaffer says, play at left-back. He responds, I'm an attacker. It's interesting, isn't it? Saka plays where he's played. He's just buzzing to be on the pitch, and he says it. He says it in interviews. He said, for wherever the coach wants me to play, I'll play. It may not be his best position, but he will play where he's asked. He doesn't do interviews with the press saying, look, I want to be this, I want to be that. And yeah, that's a fair play. And that's the difference. And obviously, there's quality in it as well, but there's a lot to go with it. Let's go on to the next point, which is about not making the England squad. He says, I'm not going to put that on Gareth, saying I need midfielders who score more goals as the reason why he didn't pick me. He just felt he needed more goals in the team to help him win the Euros, which is what he went and did. I think the squad he picked is still a great team and that can do great things. I was gutted when I didn't get picked. That was the whole reason for me going out on loan, which is interesting. That's not very Arsenal focused, but I understand that obviously he wants to be in the England squad and he needs to be playing every single week, and he went out on loan to go and do that. I'm not going to speculate on why he didn't go to Leicester or why he didn't go to Southampton. There were two other teams that are in for him at the time. But I feel like West Brom was probably the worst option of the lot. I mean, if you look at the players that were picked by Gareth Southgate, you've not seen too many players that have been picked from the lower end of the table. Maybe he didn't feel like he could get into Southampton or Leicester team, which in itself is, it goes against him as to get picked anyway. So he says to not even make the 33-man squad was, and then he says, okay, let's start from square one again. Let's go back to the drawing board and see what the plan is for the next World Cup. It did hurt, but at the end of the day, I went out there and gave it my all. Now, if we look at the England squad, right, this was the provisional squad, the 33. Now, you could put Ainsley Maitland-Niles in the squad for his versatility. You could say he could be in the list of defenders. He could be in the list of midfielders. Now, he's not getting in with the defenders. I mean, we've got Chilwell, we've got Luke Shaw, and even Bukayo Saka can play at left back, who are all, in my opinion, better than Maitland-Niles in that position. Right backs, I mean, we've got a boatload of right backs. We don't need any more. We have absolutely loads of them. And all of them are better than Maitland-Niles at right back. Trent Alexander-Arnold, Reece James, Kyle Walker, and Kieran Trippier are all better, far better than Maitland-Niles at right back. And in midfield, Jude Bellingham, come on. No, you're not better than him. Jordan Henderson, fitness problems, there's an argument, but on raw quality, absolutely nowhere close. Jesse Lingard, stellar season on loan at West Ham. Mason Mount, one of the best players in the Premier League this season. I hate the fact he plays for Chelsea, but I have a real soft spot for Mason Mount. And I'm looking forward to being able to support him as an England fan, because I certainly can't do it as a Chelsea fan. Stuff him. Calvin Phillips has had a really good season for Leeds, and he occupies that role, and that's a specialism of his, and he's always played there, and he does it very well for Leeds. Declan Rice is arguably the best deep midfielder that we've got in the England squad. And then James Ward-Prowse is arguably the closest to a competitor Maitland-Niles has. But the fact of the matter is that James Ward-Prowse is the only player in the entirety of the Premier League to play every single game across the Premier League seasons, this season just gone and the one prior, never being subbed, never being benched, playing every single minute, which is the only player to be able to do that. And he's played them very, very well. And he could be on a massive £30 million move to Aston Villa as a bit of a reward for that. Now, Maitland-Niles doesn't get into any of those positions. So I don't feel he can feel hard done by for not getting into the provisional squad. I think there are other players that have not even got into this England squad that arguably were ahead of him. It makes no sense to me for him to feel hard done by. If he was at Arsenal and he was playing week in, week out, and Arsenal were having a good season, which they weren't, and he was playing well, then maybe he'd been more of a shot. But he went to West Brom, a relegation battler that went down, played in a host of different positions, played a lot on the right-hand side, tried to play in midfield. It wasn't great. And even Sam Allardyce came out and said, look, if you want to play for Arsenal, you play where they tell you to play. And I don't think Sam Allardyce is the biggest fan of Arsenal, but he gets it. He understands that if you want to play for Arsenal, you play where you're told. It's as simple as that. You don't get to pick. No one gets to pick at this level. It's an elite level. No one chooses. Unless you are the best of the best of the best, which is far off, you don't get to pick. It's as simple as that. So I really don't. I don't know why he would have got into that team. James Ward-Prowse, as I say, was the closest one I feel that he would have had a shot against, and he was far and away better. James Ward-Prowse was. So I don't know why he would feel hard done by for that. Let's, as we do, let's flip the script. Let's look at it from the other side of things. Let's pick the part where he says he just felt he needed more goals. Yep, I think the squad he picked is still a great team that can do great things. I was gutted when I didn't get picked. Okay, he says the whole reason that he went out on loan, I can understand why he went out on loan, because he wanted to get an England squad, he wanted to get minutes again, he wasn't playing at Arsenal. It made 100% sense. So the reason why he went out on loan is absolutely fine. I do have a question about the club that he went to. Was that the right decision? I think going to West Brom probably cost him that place. Maybe going to Southampton would have given him a better chance, because obviously he would have then been in direct competition with James Ward-Prowse in the midfield, and maybe would have given him a better chance maybe to get into that team. I don't think he would have beaten him. I don't think he would have outcompeted him in that midfield, and they've got some really decent midfielders at Southampton. I think they've underperformed Southampton in the end of the season for sure. But maybe he should have gone there. Leicester, I mean, I don't know. He was never getting in over Ndidi and Tielemans and Pratt and Maddison. He was never going to get into the midfield at Leicester. So it was probably the right decision not to go there. But Southampton maybe would have been a better choice. Let's go on to... Is this the last point? Yes, it is. Okay, one more quote and then we'll go on to evaluating the entire thing. He says, you have to get your head around, so this is on how long it will take to learn his fate, Arsenal. He says, you have to get your head around what you might not want to hear and be prepared if that's the case. Be a man about the situation, which I have a little bit of a problem with, because in my opinion, if you want to use, and I don't like the phrase, if you want to use the words, if you want to be a man about the situation, a better way of saying it was like, let's be mature about the situation. And in my opinion, being mature about the situation is me proactively going to the manager and asking, look, what's going on? What am I doing? Not going to the press. I don't think this is, as he puts it, being a man about the situation. I don't think it's a mature response to go to the press and speak this openly. So I don't agree with that. If it's not going to work, then there's always other clubs that will take you. And I like to think that I've done enough in the Premier League in the last half season to have other clubs interested in me. Fair play to him for saying that. Shows a little bit of gumption. And there will be. I hope there is. No, for Arsenal's sake, there is interest in him, because I feel like this interview, if anything, is only going to lower his price. We have a habit of players doing that. Lucas Torreira comes to mind, Matteo Guendouzi as well. We know that they're going to move on for a lesser fee than maybe they're worth. I mean, the fact we got 18 million quid offer from Wolves and didn't accept it now, we look like monks for not doing that. I have a really hard time whilst I'm trying to look at this from two directions. So I have a really hard time to not look at this interview and go, this was a mistake. Clive in the chat, who I massively respect for Clive's opinion, and so I always listen to it, he says, all he is doing, Tom, is positioning himself in the market, driving interest and staying relevant. This is a good thing. I respect your opinion, Clive. I understand your theory. I struggle. It is my point of view. Like I've never been a big fan of. You saw people just in the videos that I did when Saliba was doing the interviews in January. I was never a big fan of that. It's just my point of view. I'm never a big fan of players calling out their clubs. I'm just not a big fan of it. It's not a way of saying it. I've tried to look at this from both perspectives. I think the club has made mistakes. The club definitely definitely should have contacted him by now, should have told him what he's doing. It annoys me as a fan to have been told by Arteta that they are fully planned out about what they're going to do in the window, what their plans are for ins, plans are for outs. But the fact that that's not being doubled down upon with the players, that's a frustration for me. So I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on that, because it really frustrates me that we're not prepared, that we're not in this, that we're not ready, if you know what I mean, to do what we need to do. Give me 1 second. And it just, if you know what I mean, it frustrates me that Arteta has turned around to us and said, I think that we know what we're going to do, and then next minute we're hearing that players don't know what they're doing. That's the frustration for me. Let's see what you guys are saying in the chat box, because I think it's important, because I've been doing a lot of talking for 31 minutes and not a lot of reading your comments. So let's get what you think in the chat. Dion Jenny says, I think Ainsley Maitland-Niles has already checked out of Arsenal. It's just his last resort. Then it's easier for other clubs to get him, and he is right not to wait for the pre-season. 100%. Oh, he's spot on. Like, theory-wise, you don't want to wait for pre-season to start. You don't want your future to be up in the air, not knowing what this is about, what you're going to do. It just makes no sense. And the thing is when you've got a player that desperately wants to go, and you know that, it makes sense to try and move them on quickly. You'd hope that there'd be a lot of interest in him anyway, because he's now saying this, and Premier League clubs are going to be put on alert. He's been in the Prem. He's succeeded in the Prem. He's won a trophy. He was an England international. You'd hope that all those factors would drive up his price. But I do feel like this interview will, if anything, lower the price. And I might be wrong. I'm sure there's people that think I am. But I just can't see it not having that impact, because if you're a negotiating club, you're going to go straight to Arsenal and be like, okay, we're interested in Ainsley Maitland-Niles, we want him, want to bring him into the club. Okay, we want 15 million. No, hold on a sec, he wants to go, mate. Like, he doesn't want to stay here, he's open to leaving, he knows you're not going to play him. We're going to give him a contract offer that's going to say that he's going to be playing week in, week out, or close to that. You do not have the ball in your court here. And I just feel like it does weaken Arsenal's position in a transfer negotiation. And I just can't wrap my head around why has he not gone to the coach? that really, I just don't get that. I just don't get that. Sam Trester says, where does this entitlement come on? Now, I've been very careful not to use that word. I don't think it's entitlement. I think it's frustration. I think it's anger. I think it's a feeling of betrayal, maybe too hard of a word, but I do think there may be an element of that he feels like, I don't know what else I could do. I've not played any worse, and yet I've not been picked. And it's cost me an England place when I was in the England team, in and around the squad, getting caps, getting minutes. He was coming off the bench. He was starting games. He will feel very aggrieved by that. And so I can completely understand why he is at this level of frustration, that he feels that he should go out and get some thoughts out and just, vent. It's just not, it's the only profession where you see it happening at in a sports situation. It's so unique that to an outside of the norm, which is why it's probably hard for me to, it's probably really hard for me to understand. But yeah, it's really difficult for me to put it into perspective. Yes, Clive, he massively lacks self-awareness, and check your WhatsApp, mate. Joseph Maseko says entitlement is a bit of a stretch. Yes, I think it is. Manu says, but you don't know that, Tom. Surely you don't know that. I can't imagine the club didn't give him a 3-year plan before going out on loan. His loan was awful, and he knows it. Agents set this up to get money. I don't know about the last point. I mean, I can't confirm that. I can't confirm that at all. I just, Clive's going to come on. Awesome. Okay. I'm just going to DM you the link, Clive. All right. Just give me a second, people in the chat. And then Clive will be here to give his view. It's good to get the other side of the view, other side of the coin on this. A second. Apologies for those. You're going to watch me watching a man send a DM. This is the stuff you tune in for. Anyway, there we go. Kim B says, obvious play by his agent to create a move, as there's been zero news, but them having not spoken to him is absolute amateur hour. Earham says Ainsley Maitland-Niles didn't show himself and good enough for Arsenal on his loan. If it was Willock who said that, I could accept it. I don't think I could accept it from anyone. I don't think I could accept any player the same way. I don't take exception just because it's him, if that makes sense. It's a really tough situation. Hopefully Clive's going to be jumping on any second now. I'm sure he's just sorting everything out. Computers are getting working. Sam, thank you so much for the donation, mate. He says if he kept his head down and kept working at right back, he could potentially be of that required level to start for Arsenal. He needs to accept that he isn't at the level needed to play in midfield, and that's his level. It's not about, for me, acceptance is a bad word, isn't it? It's acceptance for me is a bad word because you should never accept second fiddle. You should never accept where you are. But what you should do is that you should understand that right now you are in competition with players, that you shouldn't feel hard done by, that if you have a problem in a situation, go and speak to them. Go and speak to your coach. Go and find out why you're not playing. Don't go to the media and start asking questions, if that means. Tom says there are too many examples of recent mismanagement of players for it to always be their fault. The management have shown their amateurism too many times. And again, we come back to this point. I think the club has made a big mistake. I think the club has not planned this out correctly. And we know that there's an issue with this situation. We know that we know that through Guendouzi, we know through Saliba, we know through those situations. I mean, the Saliba loan situation in itself is an example of where Edu and the club have mismanaged the situation, have not sorted it out quick enough. And maybe Edu ironically has done an interview where he says he wants to work with less and less people. And maybe that's an error. And maybe Richard Garlick coming in now is a plus. But I mean, he's in now, Richard Garlick, our new head of football operations. He's in, he's working. And yet still there are players that don't know their future the day before the transfer window opens. That is a big red flag for me. A big red flag. Leon says, after Lauren applied himself to right back, I would have played him in any position as cover above a lot of the team. Lauren was obviously a fantastic player and earned his place in the team from playing where he was told to play by Arsene Wenger. Yoni Max says, how can you not keep in contact with players who you know are unhappy that you've then sent on loan? Am I mad? No, Yannick, this is funny. I'm in 100% agreement with you, mate. I don't know. And we're told that there are people that specifically keep in touch with the players that are on loan. People that specifically go out there and get this done and keep in touch with them. That's what I find so crazy and struggle to understand. Anyway, I should now be joined by the man, the myth.
Oh, crikey, that's quick. You don't mess about, do you?
It's not. Of course not. I'm glad. I mean, you could have been naked. You could have been anything. I've just thrown you into the screen. You're right, fella.
Yeah, I'm good. I was just sitting in the back garden in the sunshine, and your show flashed up. I thought, let me have a listen to what Tom's banging on about.
And I do that a lot. Yeah. Cool. Right. So obviously, my opinion. I mean, you've been watching, of course. But just to sum up for those people that might have just tuned in all of a sudden, in my mind, I feel like where you say he's positioning himself, I just look at going to the press as a little bit of an immaturity. I look at it as maybe, why have you not gone to the club? Surely as a player, you will have a direct line. You will have an ability through either yourself or your representatives to be able to go and find out from the coach why you're not playing. Am I mad to think that
I don't know.
That isn't possible?
That makes perfect sense in the old world. in
Yes.
the new world, where these modern players have their platform, where they are not accepting anything else but a clear fast track to the first team. They know they're British nationals. They know they're homegrown. They can drive their careers. They don't have to wait for good old Arsenal to wake up to them and have their meetings with them. They can drive their own situations, and that's exactly what he's doing. Is it his agent? He's not AD Ward, is it, Tom? Is his agent one of those?
Does he have the same agent as Saka and Nketiah?
I'm not sure. I don't think he is. But anyway, regardless of that, there are a number of young agents that are making sure their players are well positioned, and they are not falling for the old Carling Cup trick. Carling Cup trick where they give you a contract for 44 years and play you twice in the Carling Cup and put you on your backside, and then loan you around and own your career and don't give you opportunity. And then you end up becoming Jordan Ibe and Solanke, end up being those players, right? And,
he has the same agent as Sterling Oxlade-Chamberlain,
which is AD Ward. It's AD Ward.
There you go.
Right, AD Ward
Colossal is sports management. That's what they say.
Yep, he's no little flower. Right, we look at how he ripped Sterling out of Liverpool. Didn't give a monkey, did he? Ripped him out. So my view with Maitland-Niles, do you want to do a little bit on the player and then go a bit on?
Yeah, let's do it.
Right, so the player, very difficult for us to have a conversation on because he could be anything. Right, I heard you talk about left wing back, right wing back. I heard you talk about he's not good a right back as Bellerin. I can see some of your members going, well, what? But Bellerin's crap, blah blah blah. and that's always a sign, right, that he's not quite clear. His role isn't clear, and his game isn't clear, right? And that means it can drive debate. Was it the wing back system that suits him? Well, I think it probably did. That hybrid left-sided role suited him a lot. A hybrid right-sided role would have suited him a lot. But also the way we play right back would have suited him a lot. And I think I heard you mention Lauren, and it's hard to not look at Lauren and think, actually, mate, you could have been that if you put your mind to it, but you chose not to, which is his right. I think he could have been a decent right back, but I also recognise that he lacks concentration, and sometimes at right back you can get disconnected from the game mentally. And if you're disconnected from the game, you lose concentration, you play a bad pass. And you can tell that he's a player that lacks concentration because he can play hard passes, but he knocks off on some of the simple stuff. He doesn't focus on the fundamentals and the basics of his game, despite being ultra technical. So a simple, I've got to have 2 touches here rather than 1 on my weak side. He'll go for it in 1. He's got a bit of arrogance about him technically. He fancies himself. Sometimes it looks great, sometimes it doesn't. When it doesn't, people don't like him, so he lacks concentration. And he's too casual. He's got a bad attitude. His face is too relaxed. I've seen all that stuff about him. But when he's good, oh my God, he's good, right? But I'm not sure if he's Arsenal good anymore because
when it's not frequent enough. Like we don't see that top level Maitland-Niles enough to justify it for me.
Yeah, so I don't stress about him. I honestly don't. I think he's done a great job for the club. When we didn't buy enough proper fullbacks, we managed to get a lot out of him. He's had a lot of appearances. He hasn't cost us anything. He's been at the club since he was 9 years of age. And he's ready to go. I'm a 23, 24-year-old man. I don't want to sit on the sidelines anymore. I want to play. Right? And just look at football's careers as dog years. Right? He can't afford to sit around. Do you see what I mean? Because it's over in a flash. It's over in a flash. And so he absolutely needs to go. This is the year to go. Wolves came 15 mil last summer, didn't they? 15 mil for it. They went off on board. I think it's 15, but it doesn't matter. Maybe 15 will change. Semedo went to Wolves for how much? Late 20s?
Nearer the £30 million mark, I think.
Exactly. So they didn't want to pay up for him. They lowballed Arsenal, but then they lowballed on a homegrown player, went Portuguese, and went for Semedo and paid what should have been Arsenal deserved 20 million for him.
Yeah.
At the time, he was in the England squad. Did well in the cup final. MOM, I think, in the Community Shield, I believe.
Yeah, I remember doing shows on this in the summer, and I remember the chat box going mad about me saying, I don't think you'll get much more than 20 million, because they were going, we should be getting 30 million for this guy. And that's how highly he was rated at that time by the fan base.
If Wolves had come in with 20 rights at 25, I'm Arsenal, I'd have took it. Because your role's not clear. Saka was bubbling around, even in the wing-back role. And you got to say to yourself, no, I'm going to take I'm not going to play midfield. I've got Dani Ceballos back in. Let's not talk about that. I've got Dani Ceballos back in. And you know what? I've got 20, 25 mil coming my way. I would have took it. But 15, I felt was a bit cheeky. So I didn't blame the club for keeping him. I really didn't. The problem is now, COVID's kicked it even further. Every club's lost 100 million quid. Is 15 what we get now? So we've 15 to 20. That's what we're going to get. if we're lucky. So I think he's probably maintained that bid value, but not increased it, and which you hope a loan would probably do. He's done all right on loan, though. Have you watched any of the games on loan, Tom?
Yeah, some of the ones have been really good. I just don't think they've been. I just think with the context of the situation that he was in, like he went to West Brom and was basically their best player, like on paper, like in technical level, like he was better than the players that were there. Conor Gallagher for me is the only other guy that really could just kind of hold, and I think he'll go on to do really well. I mean, my missus, a Charlton fan, was gutted when he left them to go to Swansea.
Good player. Good player.
He is a good player. And the thing is with him is that, again, and I brought up the comment that Sam Allardyce made about him, saying that, like, I don't think Sam Allardyce is the biggest fan of Arsenal, to be honest. But he said, he was like, look, if you want to play for Arsenal, then you play where you're told. If they want you to play left back, right back, centre midfield, you play where you play. Because to go in at the elite level, you don't get to choose unless you are of unbelievable quality. And that is, as you alluded to earlier, the biggest problem we faced with that. But yeah, no, he was good at West Brom, and I remember watching him have man of the match performances and stuff like that. But I never thought, watching him during that whole time, no matter how good he stood out in that West Brom team, I was like, right, yeah, he's going to be in the England squad this summer. That never occurred to me.
So this is what I wrote in your comments earlier. I said, what I would get Maitland-Niles is a full-length mirror. That's what I get him, because he needs to see himself. He lacks self-awareness so badly, doesn't he? You know, everyone can see he's got ability in one-on-ones, offensively and defensively in wide zones. So even if you watch those West Brom games, when he went in to out and was on the outside of the pitch, he looked amazing. He dragged centre mids out there and he ripped them down the sides. So one-on-one, he's a one-on-one guy. One-on-one defensively, one-on-one offensively. But then you watch him jogging around the centre of the pitch. It's almost like you're at school and there's a kid at school who's a good player, says, I'm playing centre forward. Do you know what I mean? Grow up, son. That's what Big Sam was telling him. Grow up, mate. You've got attributes which are unbelievable in wide areas. Let them decide where you want to play based on how they want to use you. You're at Arsenal Football Club, one of the top 10 and top 12 biggest clubs in the world, and you're telling them where you want to play? If that's what you want to do, there's only one door available for you, and it's got an exit above it, right? And that's fine. I'm totally cool with it, as long as we get our money. You know, I'm less cool with the 32-year-old Brazilians, and I'm less cool with the people that con the fans and walk out the door on a free transfer and pretend they love the club. I'm less cool with those guys. Do you know what I mean? We've got a 2-year contract with this guy, so we're absolutely cool. He can go. We'll get paid. Contract length, nationality, minutes, Prem minutes, all your FB ref stats, Tom, look on there, Prem minutes, all his data will tell everybody what his value is, not this interview.
Oh, I do nothing to player values, mate. I'll do nothing. The amount of people that say, Tom, you should be director of football. I'm like, you bloody wish I wasn't, mate. You really don't. I'd go and sign some Hungarians from Rebel Salzburg, and that's it.
I know you would.
But so if put yourself in Arteta's shoes now. So what does he do with this situation? Because you know as well as I do, and the fans do, and the listeners do, that Arteta is not a fan of leaks. We know that. He is not a fan of people speaking about the club, about the press, about what goes on inside the club. He doesn't like it. In fact, he made a conscious effort last season with the help of Edu to get out as many people that were disruptive as possible. So all you can see now in the fallout of this interview is that he sits there and interview. And I mean, I'll get the quote up so I'm not misquoting him, but he says he's like, we'll see what happens. Like, if I go, I go. If I stay, I stay. Basically, if it works out, it works out. If it doesn't, then kiss the Arsenal badge goodbye. He's clearly open to it. But I mean, how do you think Arteta is going to react to this?
Well, I just think he'll just confirm what was probably already in their plans. That this guy, come on, we've all done our list of players that were going. We're not surprised that
he was on the outs.
He was on the outs, wasn't he? He was on the outs. This isn't a Aubameyang, for example, somebody we think is going to stay, or Kieran Tierney. Do you know what I mean? This is somebody that can read the tea leaves, and all he's doing is positioning himself to go. I wouldn't do it this way. I prefer it not to be done this way. He hasn't said anything in there that concerns me or worries me. if anything, it brings clarity to the whole situation. Right? So end of last year,
You're
I heard
saying
you
I'm a
say,
sensitive flower, is what I'm saying. Is
yeah, no, I suppose, yeah. If you look at what happened, I think someone wrote in the comments about the Ox. When the Ox left, it was a little bit bumpy, wasn't it? Sterling left, it was a bit bumpy. It's the same style of agent management. It's player management, isn't it? Try and get yourself out there. Try to flush out some bids. If I can get 2 or 3 teams interested, I can get you more money. Let's see if we can squeeze Arsenal a bit so they don't owe Arsenal too much money for you, so that money can go into my pocket, Mr. Agent, or the player's pocket. They don't care. They don't give a monkeys about us. They don't give a monkeys about the club. They've seen players like Aaron Ramsey, Ozil, and Sanchez do all their stuff. Why are they going to do anything different? They've seen Socrates walk out of a payoff, Mustafi walk out of a payoff, Kalashnik about to walk out of a payoff. Well, I'm sitting here. I want my money.
Yeah,
I want my money. This stuff. This is why we got a bit more pain to go through this summer. This won't be the only one of these situations we see, and we have to go through this so we can rip the people out that haven't got the right motivations, who recognise they're not part of the golden group, or they're not part of the disciples, and that happens. And it's really hard when you get rejected, or you feel as though you're not part of the group. It's very difficult. You're at training, you can see the team being picked. You get the wrong coloured bib. You're always on the subs bit. And this stuff really hurts when you're a player, mate. Trust me, I've seen it. I watch it. I've seen it all age groups. Yeah. You're not part of the group.
It brings back so many bad memories.
Yeah. You get the manager doesn't talk to you in the right way. He talks to the other players in the right way and gives them their one-on-ones. And you know you're on the outside. This is the message. You're worried about Ainsley. Think about Tammy Abraham at Chelsea his whole life. Come to the big game. Just even get in the squad for the Champions League final. I don't think he was in the squad. I know he had a kit on. Big games, totally rejected. Put to one side. You're going, mate. The message is clear. You're going. I don't care if you've been a Chelsea kid. You're going. You're done. Do you know what I mean? It's a harsh world, Tom. It really is a harsh world. So when clubs ready to chuck you, they chuck you. And these agents are getting in and they're getting their punch in ahead of time. You know, so it's the way it is, mate.
Let me ask you one more question, and then we're going to wrap up. The point we haven't talked about is what we touched on right at the start of the show, is that Arteta told us in press conferences, like the window's planned. It's ready. Yeah. We know what we're doing. Like we've got this all written out. I've got my crayons out and we've scripted the entire thing, and all my backups are ready and everything. Yeah. And we're told
you what he's doing, Tom? Has he told you?
I'm not telling you, mate. You wait and see. I said for weeks, I'm not worried about this window, and you said that as well. So I'm not worried. I'm chill. Totally cool. I mean, I was a little bit. To be fair, I was pretty angry when the Buendia thing happened, but we'll move on from that because it's just another conversation. But they told us it was planned. They knew what they're doing. They've got contingencies, whether or not they get European football, whatever. Owners come out, big plans to invest, all that crap, and we're now told a day before we go live in the transfer window, when it all starts to really kick off, that a player doesn't know. A player is in none the wiser about what their position is. And the article by the Telegraph, I don't know if you've read it fully yet. They also reference in that Joe Willock, and they say that Joe Willock wants to know what his future is. Does that worry you? Does it worry you that the players are not in the know? Because it scares the crap out of me. Like it really does. So why doesn't it scare you?
It didn't scare me. Okay, let's think this for a little bit. Let's give you another scenario to calm your nerves and to calm.
I was going to say, people, if you haven't realised, Clive is my therapist. This is how this works.
Right. So what tends to happen at the end of a season? The fact that Arteta has these plans. It doesn't mean that the players know about these plans. The ones that are coming out of contract will know about the plans. They'll know not coming back. The players have got 2 years to go. Arteta did say everybody who's contracted will be here next season. Did he not say that?
He did, yeah.
Yeah. Yep. So as far as he's concerned, we own the con. We own it. You're our player until we tell you otherwise. So what these agents are doing is saying, well, I want to know where we are. So if I go public, I might find out quicker. If I go public, I let people who are interested in me know that things are all not well in the world. As far as Arsenal are concerned, like Harry Kane did a massive interview with Gary Neville playing golf. It don't matter, mate. You got a 3-year contract. Daniel Levy's not even responded. Do you know what I mean? He might have ideas about going somewhere, but the management have not even responded. So basically, what happens is, don't forget, those two players are on loan. They were not Arsenal players. They were on loan. Season ends, everyone goes off on holiday. There's a date to report back. There's a date when the club is open again for people to come back and train. There's a date when everyone goes back to work, which probably is not too far away, actually. So when that happens, that's when the meetings will start. About this is where we think we're going to go, review. You've got 2 years to go. They probably told him in January, when he went on loan, it was like, let's see what you can do. This will help promote you in with the other teams. We'll have a chat pre-season. He wants his chat now. Arteta's probably got the hombre Solero on holiday. He's probably not worried. When he comes back, it will all start. Right? It'll all start. And so if this player was in the club, at the end of the season, our player, I would expect him to have a bit more of an inkling. But funny enough, the two players that are probably the most not clear are the two players who are on loan, in Willock and Maitland-Niles. It sort of makes sense. There you go, Tom. You calm yet?
A bit. A little bit more. Right. Yeah. Look, whilst I say I'm calm about the window, I'm calm about what we might do, mainly because of the amount of time that's left. I think that's the most calming factor, is that we've got a lot more time before we can start worrying. Give me a one-word answer about Xhaka leaving. Happy or not about that?
End of a cycle. Simple as that. End of a cycle. Done some really good things for the club. Done some really good things for 2 to 3 managers. End of a cycle. Perfect time for him to go. 28, 29. New experience. New young family. On you go, son. That's it. There isn't a problem there. We hopefully get between 22 and 25 mil top end. Off he goes into the moonlight. And then we got to replace him. And we got to replace 2 players for me.
Yep, I agree.
And 2 mids. One's a 6 and one's an 8. That's what
Is
we
Ruben
need.
Neves your 8, Clive?
I'm looking at it. I did a little chat. I did a podcast earlier on it, actually, on attacking play. I've done 3 podcasts, one on defensive play and goalkeeper, one on midfield play, which was quite a good one, actually, if I say so myself. I did attacking play. We put my best ever one on midfield play. I did attacking play, I did today, and it's focused on principles. One of the things that concerns me about how we attack is our inability to switch zones. And Ruben Neves can switch zones. So I said, if you have your 5 lanes, if you move one lane, the defense shuffles across really easy. When you start to move 2 and 3 lanes in one go, then you start to put a stress on the defensive response, right? Because you're now forcing people to stretch out, and that's what you want to do. You want to create dispersal. You want to create space. And you've heard me say, I'm sure a lot of your listeners have heard me say, too many of our players can't kick the ball. And what I mean by that is we literally can't switch it. We can't kick it. And so switching the point of our attack is one of the key things we need to add. And from my YouTube experience, Ruben Neves does that really, really well. Does it really, really quickly.
You love a YouTube compilation. Yeah.
I love a YouTube compilation to try to apply it to what we need to do better.
Do you have access to iScout? You do, don't
I
you?
do. But you know what?
Yeah.
I like YouTube. I don't know.
Yeah.
I've got Yscout. I've got a Yscout. I've got a Yscout.
It's so skewed.
But the thing is, it's skewed, but I know it's skewed. It's like watching wrestling. It's good, but you know it's fake. Do you know what I mean? But you can still look at
but then you can't. That's not what you're going to get. Like that's part of what you're going to get. You're going to get a percentage of that.
You're going to get a percentage of that. But the thing is, you boys, like you and Elliot, have reminded me that FB Ref exists, and I go onto that and I put the 2 together, and I can see how often the skill sets that I've seen are actually happen. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, all right, yeah, that's fine. That's fine, son. Anyway, I really appreciate you jumping on, Clive. I'm sure the listeners do as well.
We'll see. I can't have you there struggling and worrying. I can't have it.
I was on the verge of tears.
You need some counselling.
Cameron Lee Ray says, "Come on, Tom, announce Clive as a TGT permanent move." No. Clive comes on loan a couple of times. Yeah, he's very much an Arsenal Vision podcast to his core, and you should go and check those guys out.
That's all I do. I
don't do much and same old Arsenal and hybrid squads, and it jumps on those.
Well, they asked me. I never say no.
They asked me, it's not my fault, I swear.
But the thing is, you get some people who think, "Oh, I don't want to go on this, don't want to go on that." Don't get up yourself. We're all fans, right? We're all fans. We're all fans.
Oh, that feels so special.
But you're good, Tom. You're good.
Cheers, bro. I much appreciate that.
Keep it going.
As I'm sure the chat box do. Shaquille says in the chat, what's his YouTube channel? You don't have one, but you do have a podcast. So do tell people where they can find your show, mate.
Yeah, I just do the Arsenal Vision. My wife says, get a YouTube channel, you idiot. So he's far too complex.
Really?
Yeah, she said, why don't you do your own stuff? I thought, I don't. I just go.
Mate, honestly, I wouldn't recommend it to anyone. Like,
Yeah,
it's hard work. I love it, absolutely, but I would never recommend someone start, especially now. It's such a convoluted business right now. It's so crazy.
It's hard.
But yeah,
there's a lot of competition. It's really hard. It's really hard work. And you're fortunate. You got a good group of followers, right? So
they're all right.
They're all right. I see them. They're good. They're good. That's why I don't mind jumping on. Anyway.
Yeah, appreciate that, mate. Anyway, you can find Clive on Twitter at ClivePAFC. I'm sure you're already following him, but if you aren't, please make sure you do. You can find us at The Gonna Talk TV. It's right there. Myself at Tom Canton Media. I'll be back tomorrow. The graft does not stop. 8 a.m. tomorrow morning for the transfer show. And then I'll be joined at 9 a.m. by Andrew Arsblog to come on and have a chat.
Say hello for me.
I will do, of course. And then maybe in the future, I'm not going to promise anything, but there might be a special treat, a very transfer special treat next week, maybe. I'm saying nothing else. And no, it's not Fabrizio Romano. For goodness sake, it's not him. But anyway, I will see you guys, and so will Clive, very, very soon. And as always, up the Arsenal.